And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, March 11th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today, but before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. It really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. Yeah, I almost said the old link, but yeah. So with that being said, let's get into what we are going to talk about for today. Hope everybody had a good weekend. So there actually was a lot of stuff that went down over the weekend, which is great because that gives us stuff to talk about. So I'm going to talk about, to start off the show, get into Baker Mayfield and Chris Jones signing their new deals. So we'll get into that. I'll talk about some of the trades that went down as well. Jerry Jeudy being traded from the Broncos to the Browns, and Mac Jones being traded from the Patriots to the Jaguars. Then in the third part of the show, I'll talk about some quarterback news. The Vikings are letting Kirk Cousins test. Well, Kirk Cousins informed the Vikings that he is going to test free agency and see what else is out there. But also, Russell Wilson signing a one-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we will get into that as well. And then the final part of the show, I'll talk about some stuff regarding the Philadelphia Eagles. They re-signed Brandon Graham and longtime defensive tackle Fletcher Cox. He retired. So we'll get into that and how that impacts the Eagles as well. So a lot to talk about today. So let's get into the first segment, which is talking about two guys that got new deals, Baker Mayfield and Chris Jones. So we'll start off with Baker Mayfield. So he agreed to a 3-year, $100 million contract. The contract includes up to $115 million in incentives and $50 million guaranteed. $30 million of Mayfield's deal is fully guaranteed in year one, with another $10 million guaranteed in 2025. And $10 million for injury vested next year. Baker, of course, had a solid season with the Bucs, and he definitely deserved it. With how he played, the Bucs won the playoff game against the Eagles. They went into the next round, and yeah, they did lose, but they did put up a good fight against the Lions. And obviously, when Mike Evans re-signed with the Bucs, Baker was going to re-sign shortly after that. That's kind of, what I got, and I think many of you guys probably, sensed that as well, that Baker was always going to return to the Bucs. Now, I know there were some rumors out there that the Patriots had interest. There could be other teams out there, the Falcons maybe, which they could be maybe signing Kirk Cousins. That's possible, with him going to test free agency. But yeah, it seemed like Baker was always going to go back to Tampa, especially with Mike Evans re-signing. And the Bucs, they've done a great job with now free agency officially starting this week. It's, great that they were able to retain their three key guys, Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield, and of course they franchise tagged Antoine Winfield Jr. Now, they do have some other free agents as well. Levante David, who I've talked about, him saying that he wants to come back to Tampa, but, we'll see what happens. But that's big, to get those guys back. Obviously, Baker had, like I said, a great season with the Bucs in 2023. Career highs and career bests in every category. Passing yards, he had 4,044 passing yards, 28 passing touchdowns, completion percentage of 64.3%, which again, these are all career bests for him. And to be able to come back to this team, listen, the Bucs right now, you look at them as, depending on what the Falcons do, right now they are looked at as the favorites to win the division next year. And I think it's going to be different because the Falcons, once they figure out the quarterback situation, they're going to have something to say about that. And I also think the Saints as well, even though, the Saints have some issues with their cap situation. I know we've touched upon that. But like I said, if Derek Carr can maybe carry that momentum from the end of the season into next year, then the Saints are going to be a team to watch out for, especially in that division. And again, the Bucs in the middle of the season, they were struggling, but then Baker got hot. Team started playing better, and they ultimately carried that, to the end of the season. They won the division, get to the playoffs, and yeah, they won a playoff game. So, we'll see what they end up doing if they add, more to this team. Like I said, I think another running back to complement Rachaad White, I think that would be a good move. And we'll see if they, add to the defense as well. But again, this is a step in the right direction for them. Like I said, they got their key guys back, and they go from here. So, I mean, for me, it's going to be nice to, next year see Baker and Mike Evans, see what they can continue doing to build off of what they were able to do in 2023. Mike Evans had a great year with Baker. So, good for the Bucs, good for Baker. And like I said, like I've said before, this is his new home, and hopefully he continues to succeed down in Tampa. So the other deal now is regarding Chris Jones, which this was huge for the Chiefs, obviously. Again, talked about this. I mean, obviously, L'Jarius Sneed could be somebody that ends up getting traded. They did franchise tag him. But you don't want to lose Chris Jones. Chris Jones is the best defensive player on the Chiefs. And so they re-signed him to a 5-year, $95 million guaranteed contract, making it the largest salary ever for a defensive tackle. Chris Jones confirmed on social media. He's been one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. 67 sacks over the past 6 seasons. And the Chiefs were able to get him back. 10.5 sacks. First team All-Pro for the second straight season. Won a third Super Bowl in 5 years. Coming off of a solid year. And the Chiefs were able to retain him. And now let's see what they end up doing with L'Jarius Sneed. Does he end up getting traded? But this is huge. This is definitely huge. And obviously, Mahomes, he tweeted about it as well. But yeah, if the Chiefs are able to retain L'Jarius Sneed, nobody on that defense left. And that's going to be a problem because, again, the Chiefs' defense was the strength of the team for the most part in 2023. And obviously, big part of them getting back to the Super Bowl and winning it. And now, next year, let's see what they end up doing in the draft, if they end up drafting a receiver. I know Xavier Worthy of Texas, that's someone that you could keep an eye on for maybe the Chiefs could try to get him to add to that receiver core. We'll see. And maybe they could add a receiver in free agency. Who knows? But, I mean, listen, this team is going to be running it back next year. That's going to happen. Again, how many times have I talked about them already saying that they want a three-peat? I mean, they were literally saying it, as early as the parade. I mean, they're ready to get back to work and try to do something that's never been done before. And, they had some key guys that they could have possibly lost, but they were able to retain Chris Jones, and now let's see what they end up doing with L'Jarius Sneed. But, of course, then on the offensive side of the ball, you still got Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. I mean, I don't have to go through all that. But, yeah, I mean, you want to add to the offense now. Add more pass catchers to this team, whether it's through the draft, whether it's through free agency. I mean, the Chiefs are going to figure it out. But I don't think next year they should go into the year without adding some more wide receivers, which you think they're going to do. And speaking of wide receivers, earlier, before I came on, T. Higgins requested a trade from the Bengals. The Bengals franchise tagged him, and now he's looking to get paid elsewhere. And this is something that I've talked about. They franchise tagged him, but, Joe Burrow's new deal hasn't kicked in yet, and you still got to pay Jamar Chase, so you're not going to be able to keep everybody. And ultimately, that now might lead to T. Higgins being traded. Now, he's not getting traded to the Chiefs. The Bengals are not going to do that. I think, again, I mean, unless the deal is right, maybe he goes to a team in the AFC. But I think most likely he's going to end up getting traded to a team in the NFC. I could just that makes more sense. I don't know, at least for me, because I don't know. Do the Bengals want to play against him? Probably not. But again, if the deal is right, then maybe he does get traded to a team in in the AFC. But like I said, I could see him going to a team in the NFC. So that's interesting. And the other thing too is, Tyler Boyd's a free agent. So if that's the case, maybe you want to tell Tyler Boyd, listen, we're going to be trading T. Higgins probably. Why don't you stick around? So because you don't want to lose, T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. I mean that's almost. I mean those are two of your three best wide receivers. And Jamar Chase is great, but you don't want him to be the only threat at wide receiver. And they had some other guys step up when guys were hurt. But, I think if they end up trading T. Higgins, I mean, you could probably get Tyler Boyd back for I mean, we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. I mean, I don't think Tyler Boyd's going to be commanding, top dollar. I mean, he's a solid wide receiver, but I don't think, he's going to ask for a boatload of money. But we'll see. I mean, again, I have no idea. But that was something else that I thought was interesting, is that T. Higgins requesting a trade, and so yeah, that's something to keep an eye on. Also, another signing. So the Jaguars, they also signed a Bills former center, Mitch Morse. I believe it was a 2-year contract. So yeah, a lot of stuff has been happening, which is great. NFL free agency is in full swing, which is nice. Yeah, so they signed Mitch Morse to a 2-year, $10.5 million contract with $7 million guaranteed. Offensive line for the Jags was kind of a mess last year. So that was a good move by the Jags to try to improve that, to get better protection around Trevor Lawrence. Because Trevor Lawrence, I mean, towards the end of the year, I mean, he was dealing with so many injuries. Whether it was the concussion, the injury he suffered in the Bengals game, which you thought was going to be significant, but he ended up coming back from that. You want to get better protection around him. And I think that's also, part of the reason why the team kind of collapsed, is just, Trevor Lawrence getting hurt. So they were able to, they add an offensive lineman, and, let's see what else they do. I mean, it doesn't look like Calvin Ridley's coming back. Interested to see where he could possibly end up. Maybe he ends up on the Chiefs, because the Chiefs need a wide receiver. But like I said, a lot of stuff is happening right now. At least over the weekend, and again, we're free agency is underway, and we'll see where players end up going. But yeah, a lot of major stuff over the weekend. Because again, I had all my segments planned out, and then late last night, Russell Wilson ends up signing with the Steelers. So now I have to go back and change around some things. But we also had some trades that went down as well. So that is what we'll talk about when we come back from our first break of the show. A couple of trades. The Browns, the Browns acquiring Jerry Jeudy from the Broncos. So we'll talk about that. And also the Patriots trading Mac Jones to a team that we just talked about, the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we'll talk about those trades, what that means, and that is what we will discuss when we come back from our first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.